What is up, and welcome back to another episode of the 48 Men Podcast, where I am interviewing all of my best friends. And today I got one of my good friends here in Louisiana, Reeves Walker, who is one of my best friends over the past couple of years. And Reeves is a newlywed. He is the lead singer of LO Worship, and he's a rental director at Camp Choka here in town, which has been, how long has Camp Choka been a thing for?
1967.
1967. And Sadie's, was it great-grandpa started it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been throughout the family for several generations, and Reeves is kind of running it out there now with all of his special skills and abilities. So Reeves, welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, well, you know, I'll kind of spare the details of how we met because it's kind of an unrelatable and just interesting experience. But when we really got close, it was on a beach trip with Sadie's family. Or was it on the ski trip? You said beach trip. I thought it might have been the ski trip. No, your brother was on the ski trip. Yeah. That was not you. No offense. That was good. That was good.
No, I couldn't go on that one.
You couldn't go on that one. But no, we met at the beach and got really close, and we both have similar stories. Both super wild in college. Both got saved, and now just trying to be good husbands and do as much as we can do for the Lord. But I really want to start with, so as I mentioned, you're newlywed. You got married back in December. And, when you and Lydia first started dating, she's a little taller than you. And I remember that you really wanted to start working out, and you started going to the gym a lot more. So what was your motivation there besides just getting in shape? Because you started dating the love of your life, which we'll get a little bit more into that in a little bit. But were you able to sustain that? Because I do know, when you first started out, you went pretty hardcore and you kind of dipped off for a little bit. So kind of tell the story of, you getting into fitness more so when you started dating your wife now.
Yeah. So not to take like a dark turn right off the bat, but kind of am. I actually went through a super dark season of depression, and I got some like secular counseling at first, and I also got counseling at the church, and I started to learn more about like what physical fitness does to your mental health. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter what it is, like just being active. And most of the time working at camp, like during the day, like I can stay pretty active, but it's just like having that extra thing every day or just however often I was able to go. I really started noticing how much that made me just way more healthier from a mental standpoint. And so that was just a part of my journey of combating that season of just depression. It was just a really dark time. And so I was trying to find just a good rhythm of my time with God and pushing away anxious thoughts and definitely some spiritual warfare. So that was definitely one of the remedies. But also there was some insecurity probably. Yeah. Just Lydia was taller than me. She's taller than me. That is, everyone knows.
She'll always be taller than me.
Yeah, unless shrinking, but you probably didn't have it until you're old.
Unless she shrinks and you have a random midlife growth spurt, she'll be taller than you.
I probably had a little bit of insecurity, but not much. I mean, it hasn't really bothered me. I definitely had thoughts like, she's taller than me, and it's obvious. But I knew that she talks about it now. But she had talked about how she was a little bit insecure about me being shorter, and she was like really wrestling with that. And really, Sadie helped her, coached her through a lot of that. She was
we both did. I remember that. We both prayed over her that
shout out to Sadie
that she would not see the height differential as an obstacle in y'all's marriage. Well, I want to talk about this because you're the only person that I've ever known that's played lacrosse competitively. And anytime we ever talk about like, what sport requires the most athletic ability, you always throw lacrosse in there, which is funny because I disagree. And I honestly know nothing about lacrosse, but I know that you played it competitively. So, what kind of training? Because I know what kind of training goes into basketball and football and baseball, yada yada yada. But what training goes into like lacrosse, and how do you train to be competitively good at that sport?
Well, I'll just say right off the bat, one, I'm not a very athletic person. I'm like as middle of the line as it gets. So there's that. And then also lacrosse was just a sport that was like, it was like still being developed. So it was considered a club. And so it was just something I just decided to do. Like wasn't good enough to play basketball. I was at like 5A high school. So joined the lacrosse team. And obviously if you don't know anything about lacrosse, it's basically like, if I had to describe it, it would be like hockey, but on grass. And like
And a
also
ball
soccer.
instead of a puck.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not on the ground.
A ball instead of a puck and a stick with a net. But it's also played like soccer.
Yeah.
And the positions are a lot like soccer. So you got a goalie, you've got like forwards or attack, and then midfield and defense. And there's a lot of running, a lot of change of possession. So you're running up and down a football length field just constantly. And it's actually surprisingly physical.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I lived in Baton Rouge at the time. Nobody grew up playing lacrosse. Like, we're in Louisiana. So, like, we got to high school, and pretty much anyone that played was either just, like, really interested and, like, wow, I've never heard of this, or they were not good enough to play any of the four main sports, like, at a 5A school. So, there I was. And so, I mean, it was just intense cardio.
Yeah.
And, like, learning how to use the stick and throw a ball out of the stick with a net.
Yeah.
And so, like, no one knew how to do that. All the teams in our division, like, were really at the same level. And then we had some other teams that we'd play that were more competitive, and we just get stomped.
Yeah.
So, like, all of our freshman year, we just learned how to play the sport, really. It was, like, ground level. And then by the time we were juniors and seniors, like, we were playing really good teams and doing okay.
Yeah.
And then the year after I left, we actually went to the playoffs for the first time. Like, my school did. But we would never make it to the playoffs. We were like still learning.
Did you ever play lacrosse like post following Jesus, or did you always play lacrosse?
No.
Even for baseball, like I never really got a chance to play baseball after God actually intervened in my life. I was always like, I always joke like my senior year of high school, like this is, I mean, I can say this in my podcast because it's my podcast. This was super douchey. My walk-up song in baseball my senior year was "Handsome and Wealthy" by Migos. Like,
That's a good song.
yeah, I mean, but it's but the meaning is terrible. And like looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have played some kind of like, you know, Christian rap or Lecrae or Andaminio or KB or something like that. Because I mean, I was just such in a worldly mindset of like, I want to be good at my sport. I want people to think I'm cool. I want girls to like me, whatever that void might have been. And I was just super worldly when I was at the height. And I say the height of my sport, it was high school, which I could have gone on to keep playing, but we'll save that for another time. But so for you with lacrosse, were you always kind of in an unhealthy like place when you were playing lacrosse?
Spiritually?
Yeah, spiritually.
Yeah. So I only played lacrosse in high school, and then went to LSU for 2 years, and came to the end of myself in the middle of sophomore year. Moved back here to West Monroe. And it was around then that like God really started to transform my heart. I could hear him calling my name and gave my life to him in my bedroom in the middle of the night one night. And that was long after lacrosse. But I had this similar experiences. Like I just was very full of myself. And like to say that I was like, I would say I'm like right in the mix for like talent wise in lacrosse of the team. Like I wasn't like anywhere near the best player, but I was like good enough to like be a little cocky, and I was super flashy and just thought that I was something.
Yeah.
But I had like 6 pairs of socks on with my Newtons and like every color knee band down my leg. Like it was ridiculous.
Were you an armband guy?
Yeah. I mean, it was like every accessory I could put on. Like lacrosse is like the weirdest thing. It's very flashy. Like there's,
no,
like
I've seen
somebody,
I've seen clips on Instagram of people.
I talk
like,
about this a
decked out
lot. It's
in
so
lacrosse
funny.
gear.
Yeah, they like there's so many like trending things. Like they'll unstrap their helmet before the game. And they'll pull it so far down on their face they can't even see, but it looks cool. And everyone that plays lacrosse, it seems like, has long hair, and then like just buckets of hair coming out. Like, you see somebody that looks like that, usually it's an intimidation factor.
So I'm getting ready to go on a ski trip with Sadie's family, and instead of packing a bunch of cold gear stuff and thermals, I will also be bringing with me AG1's travel packs that I love to bring with me when I travel. When I'm at home, I love to take their stuff before I go to the gym in the mornings. It's been a part of my morning routine for about 1.5 years, 2 years now, for a while. And I love it because it helps my immune system. It gives me more energy. I really feel like it benefits my gut health. And I honestly just feel like I perform better when I'm taking it. And when I travel, I love to have some health on the road, because a lot of places we go to do not have many health nutritional options. So I love AG1, but what I love more than AG1 is what's all actually in it. So with one scoop, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day off right. And this special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. And what I also love about AG1 is their mission and what they stand for. And for every purchase, AG1 donates to organizations helping to get nutritious foods to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry. And in 2020, Athletic Greens donated over 1.2 million meals to kids. And AG1 supports mental clarity and alertness. It supports better sleep quality and recovery. And it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while also tasting delicious. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. There's no need for a million different pills to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Huff. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Huff to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Well, I want to talk to you because, like I said, you're 2 months post marriage, and a few months ago we had kind of joked about this thing that we were talking about, but you had joked about your honeymoon bod.
Oh yeah.
And for me, it's funny. So when me and Sadie got married, went to Cabo on our honeymoon, I think I gained 10 pounds on my honeymoon. I didn't work out. I ate like 8 cookies from room service every night, and I got home and I literally put on 10 pounds. Yeah. Just from eating like crap on my honeymoon.
I actually think I gained 15.
You gained 15.
But I think I would have to include...
You were on your honeymoon a little bit longer than we were there.
Yeah, so I was going for the honeymoon bod, but whatever. Like, the actual real world, like, real life stresses of a wedding came along. And also, like, just traveling. We were doing going to the prison right before, like 2 days before the wedding. And so I was just not working out. And I definitely started gaining weight around then because I started eating more, probably from stress.
Yeah.
And then same thing, all inclusive. I was ordering stuff every night, but it was like I was working out all up until then, planning for that. And then I had been wanting to bulk, and I told you about this. I could not gain weight. Like I think I have a really good metabolism. Like it's apparent that I do because I could eat like 15,000 more calories. 1,500 more calories than I would normally eat. And I still wouldn't gain weight. Like somehow I'd end up burning it off. But the honeymoon, I just slapped on 15 pounds and then just recently got back to the gym.
Do you think you could eat 15,000 calories in a day?
No.
I think I could.
Yeah, I believe you could.
I think I could. No. Starting from like 8 a.m. and if I ended at midnight, if I was being active doing stuff, I think I could definitely.
Yeah, I just hate eating. I just can't.
Yeah, I love eating.
I hate
That's
eating.
my problem.
I feel like it's a process. If I could hit fast forward to the end of the meal, I'm just ready to do the next thing.
Yeah. Well, what's your relationship with fitness right now? Because I know you're kind of starting to get back into it just after wedding stuff and honeymoon stuff and like you said, traveling, all that stuff. Where are you at right now with that?
Yeah. With our Mondays and Tuesdays, I get to go to the gym and I have like my time because Lydia works at night with FCA and everything. But I try to go 3 to 4 times a week. And so it usually looks like the first couple days of the week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I can go. And then on the weekend, I'll go some more, and I'll try to rest like Thursday and Friday. But really just working out. Yeah. I have seasons where like I will start running, but I haven't in a long time.
Yeah, it's fun. You have seasons where you're like all in on something.
Yeah.
And then in other seasons you're like, I haven't been in the gym. I haven't been in the gym in like weeks.
Exactly. I'm like all in or all out.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, I love it.
There's no in between.
Yeah. I'm like that with certain things, like, but the gym, I'm not like that with that. I try to be fairly consistent with that.
Yeah, I wish I could be.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get you there. That's why you're on the podcast.
A work in progress.
Completely kidding. But what I love about this podcast is that we get to talk about physical transformations, which I do think is cool and inspiring, and encouraging people. But at the same time, that's not near as interesting to me or as inspiring, as encouraging as spiritual transformations. Yeah. And, we've kind of talked about yours a little bit when you were at LSU for 2 years and sort of transferred and moved out. But like you said, playing lacrosse throughout growing up. Kind of share a little bit about your testimony from going from, like you said, your school in Baton Rouge to going to LSU and kind of, spiraling out of control when you got there.
Yeah.
What are some of the factors that led up, throughout childhood growing up to get you to that point? And what do you feel like finally broke you when you said you got to the end of yourself and you knew that you needed to change your life?
Yeah. So, I grew up without my dad, which all you know this.
Yeah.
Without my dad, like, in my life as much as, so my parents got divorced. I don't know why that's so hard to say. So my parents got divorced, and so because of that, like, the way custody played out, my mom had us the majority of the time. So my dad wasn't in my life as much as, like, a normal kid would have their dad in their life. And so, and it was very, like, today I look back and I thank God and I see how it was all by his design. But it was just, it had an effect on me that made me have to learn a lot of things the hard way. Because I didn't always have my dad, like, on my case, just catching me with everything I was doing. And my mom did a great job. And she would get married whenever, she got remarried whenever I was a junior in high school. But having that dynamic, I got into a lot of trouble and I knew how to hide it. And so, I dove headfirst into pornography in probably the 4th grade or 5th grade. And I got caught one time and knew how to hide it after that. And I can only imagine how hard that was for my mom to try to have this conversation with me. But so that was obviously, like, very unfortunate. And my mom had to put us in this Catholic school system in Baton Rouge because the education was way better, and it was just for the right price for her trying to raise me and my brother. And so that was very different than, like, obviously anything I'd ever experienced. I'm not Catholic. And so I got thrown into, like, wild groups of kids. And as early as 6th grade, like, kids are talking about drinking, and I just not been around any of that. And so that carried on in high school, just followed that same path, just having terrible friend groups. And, like, I just turned into this person that wanted to people please because I just wanted to be accepted at the end of the day. And I think everybody has their share of struggling with that. It's like, we want to be accepted. We want to know that we're wanted. We want to feel loved. And just the nature of my upbringing, like, I think I didn't always get to experience that in the way that God designed. Yeah. And so that I was searching for it in ways that the world could provide, or the ways that I thought the world was offering to me. So, it was just drugs and alcohol and whatever they were doing, I was in it. And I tried to be the craziest one to gain the affections of them. Yeah. And so ended up joining a fraternity at LSU. And it was as I started developing as a person at the rate that I should have been, I was so far into drugs and alcohol that I realized how much of a mess my life was. Yeah. And all I wanted to do was numb that pain. And so I lived a completely drunk, high life, like, just running away from. And I remember, like, I got kicked out of my dorm. I could not stay in a single living place for what felt like longer than a semester because roommates didn't want to live with me because I was so crazy. I'd come in every night just trashed, just running away from any normal feelings, any emotions. And eventually I was living by myself, and I had this fraternity house. There were constantly, like, there's constantly people at the fraternity house. Like, there's always something to do.
Yeah, all the time.
Like, if you have to study, you can get away from it. If you have to go to class, you can get away from it. There's always somebody that's not doing those things. And so specifically the fraternity I joined was just a whole chaos of crazy people. And so, like, the alternatives I had from doing anything I needed to do in my life were always there. And I would run from being alone and run from my thoughts, and eventually came to my breaking point. Like, I was trying to study for my midterms in my sophomore year, and I literally could not read and remember anything I was reading, because I was at that point I was very far into Xanax addiction and like wasn't telling anybody and was just taking it regularly before, like not even going to parties or any functions or anything, just taking it because I just had this craving for it and it was messing with my brain to the point that I was like, I had a moment of clarity and was realizing I couldn't even pick up words on the page. And so I believe that God called my name that night and brought it to my attention and said, like, enough is enough.
Yeah.
And brought me to the point of saying enough is enough. And
that's so good. Yeah. Well, for you, because what's super crazy about your story and mine is similar in ways in the idea of we both have these huge marker points in our lifetime where on paper, if you were to look at it, you would think that would have been a wake up call for us.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. You know, and same for me, like this unassuming night when I do feel like God had called my name, and same thing for you, studying for midterm, and you can't read the words on a page or really remember it. You feel like God called you, but it wasn't in the moments where we were, you know, at our lowest, where we feel like God called. Oh, I mean, like yes, at our lowest, like internally, but not necessarily the lowest, you know, outwardly, like strung out at a party or whatever.
Right.
And we both have similar reactions because, you know, when we would experience these terrible things in our life, we would both kind of, you know, grow resentful towards that or kind of bitter towards that. So why do you feel like, you know, even for instance, like your spring break story, you know, and then getting kicked out of the dorm. So why do you feel like maybe some of those huge turning points that maybe on paper would look like that would have been a wake up call?
Right.
Why do you feel like, I mean, obviously I know God's sovereign, you know, so he chose not to, you know, not to call you at that time, but at the same time, we do have free will to want to change, you know?
Yeah.
So why do you feel like maybe some of those crazier stories, it wasn't your time to be woken up to that?
Yeah. So the spring break story that he's referring to is I went to jail. And
I said this spring break story because I didn't know if you were one to go there or not. I was going to say jail, then I was like, yeah, I'll say spring break story and see if he goes there.
I'm not ashamed of any of it now.
Let's talk about it.
I don't know. It's a story about somebody. I don't know.
Well, it's funny. We did a prison ministry like a few months ago, and the guy who was leading it was jokingly like, oh, has anyone ever been to prison? And Reeves like slowly raised his hand, and the guy thought he was joking. Reeves was like, no, seriously, I've been to jail. So okay, continue on the story. I just thought it was funny.
So I mean, like typical fraternity, like trip to the beach. I had way too much to drink. I'm acting a fool in the street and get cop pulls over.
Which you were at that short stint there when everything, like stuff got cracked down on the beach party.
Yeah. The laws had changed. It was like, I mean, it is
like if that would have been 4 years prior to that or 5 years prior, then that would not have been a situation.
Yeah,
but you were right on the cusp of, you know, Panama City of
they were cracking down.
Yeah, they were cracking down on Orange Beach.
It was pretty much you could do anything and you could get arrested.
You happened to just be, you were like a little guinea pig, so to speak.
Oh yeah,
I could tell this story.
But so I get put in the cop car, and I like have glimpses of remembering that, but like I woke up in jail.
Yeah,
and I've never been in jail before, and it's like 7 a.m. and like the last thing I remember was like 1 p.m. And so I woke up, I'm freaking out, and then they come and knock on the door and they're like, all right, come on. And I was like, all right, well, we're leaving. Well then no, we got drawn out of like 1,000 people, like of course. And this is just like today I have a belief that God has humor.
Yeah.
And like this is just like he was just running it down on me. But I got drawn. 30 of us got drawn out of like 1,000. They're like, we're transporting you an hour and a half away to Baldwin County. So I'm just like, okay. And so they put these ankle cuffs on me. They put me in a transport van like you see in a movie. I mean, this like completely metal van. And it's horrible.
Yeah, you were like a felon.
It was the most degrading thing. And I was like, I mean, I was just sitting there like, I deserve so much better than this.
Yeah.
But in the most prideful way. Yeah. Like, I was like, this is ridiculous. Get me out of this bus. Like, I should have never been arrested in the first place. I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm innocent. And like, to what you asked, there was definitely like a moment there on paper that like you would think, oh, surely.
Yeah, so surely that was your wake up.
You got booked out and you're like, fall on your knees. No, my mom called me in and like she started getting on to me like any mom would. And I'm like, are you serious right now? I just got out of jail.
Yeah.
Hung up on her. And like, it was just, I mean, I hate that thought, that memory, but I was so stuck in my ways, even in that moment. You would think that I would have come to Jesus.
Yeah.
But I did not.
Yeah. Well, what's so cool about your story is, when you finally did come to Jesus, you really started leading worship. And I don't really know, much of the timeline with all that, but I know that Sadie, because you grew up with Sadie and John Luke and all them, and no one ever knew that you could sing. No one ever knew that you had a good voice. When did you discover that for yourself, and how did you start worshiping after God called you out of all that? When was your first time leading worship? When did you really know that you could sing? Or because most people that are good at singing don't really know that they're good at singing, early on kind of stuff. So
yeah, I definitely didn't.
Yeah, what was your story with that?
I did not know, and I always loved music. My family has like a ton of musical background. Like my grandmother was an amazing piano teacher. My grandfather was a band director, and this is all on my mom's side. My mom is really good at piano, majored in music. She does not work in music, but she majored in music, like super knowledgeable. And so I grew up just having my face shoved in it. I never really liked it. Whenever I came to West Monroe and started getting my life straight, I had a couple people come along and mentor me. One of those people was Ryan Lee, who was the worship leader at WFR Church.
Yeah.
And he just really poured into my life and knew my mom really well and knew that I love music, so really got me into it. And then I also had it was the craziest season of my life, because all of a sudden I had like 6 college pastors pretty much, because like 3 different couples were all helping out with the college ministry right whenever I came back. And so I had some of the best like wise counsel ever. And that summer at camp, I was just working as a counselor and I wasn't even full-time yet. But I got with Sadie's cousin, Allie, and was like, let's do an act for the skit night. Let's sing Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Stapleton, but let's change the lyrics and make it kid friendly. And it was just a big joke. Like, yeah. It was like more like a clever like play on the song. Like we changed it to like Tennessee Pepsi and dumbed it down. But one of those mentors that I had in the college ministry came up to me after, along with other people, and just began to tell me how well I could sing. And I just didn't really take them seriously. Yeah. But this person, Melissa Atkins in specific, like sat me down and was like, no, you seriously need to. And I'll never forget that moment. I tell that story all the time because I really did not know I could sing. And she saw this calling on me as Ryan was already trying to get me. I was already starting to like learn how to play guitar. I played guitar in that little skit. And yeah. That was definitely a God ordained moment for sure. So
you're coming out of that and like starting to lead worship. Did you ever have reserves of like feeling unqualified to do that?
Yeah.
Because I remember for me when I first started, really following Jesus, and then early on I got plugged into Bible study, and then here I am at Bible study. Then I start leading a Bible study. I don't really know why I got assigned to do that. But yeah, I would stumble with things that God has saved me from. And I'm like, man, like, it's one of those early mindsets of like, I thought God saved me from that. Yes, he did, but I'm still struggling with it. I'm still stumbling in it. Yeah. And I feel unqualified to get up and like, teach or like lead a group of guys that are going through the same thing as me. So, I mean, I felt unqualified early on of like, kind of feeling hypocritical in the sense of, feeling like I'm better than, but I know I'm not kind of thing.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like when you started leading worship, you kind of dealt with those feelings of feeling maybe unqualified.
Yeah, I definitely had to keep some mentor type relationships present in my life. Just like the Bible says, to seek wise counsel. And there's a lot of stuff that I encountered. Like, it's usually just like a scheme of the devil. Like when you're put in a position of authority for the kingdom of God, like he's going to bring up anything he can to try to shut you down.
Yeah.
And just shut that whole operation down. And so, and usually I've found it's gonna be something that he tries to make you feel unqualified. And so, like, I had all kinds of past sins that I was like, oh, I really can't do this. Like I had some real moments where I had to, and the men's retreat at our church was like one of the places that I found this freedom from some some sins like that I did years ago.
Yeah.
But just because of like, as naturally as it is, like we learn how messed up we are.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect opportunity for the devil to just take that understanding as we like grow into that. And we realize the cost that Jesus paid when he died for our sins, that truly washed us clean of those things. We start to understand the gravity of how messed up we are, and the devil can easily just spin that around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that obviously like staying in the word was crucial for me as I was learning how to use the word as my sword to fight off the enemy in that realm. And I would say the most crucial thing that I had was mentors and like loving relationships around me, people further in their faith walking alongside me and making them aware of like what's going on. And like one thing that happened along the way was one of the passion conferences I went to that Matt Chandler spoke at. He spoke about the woman at the well. And his main point was that to be 99% known is to be unknown.
Yeah.
So if you have 1% you're
good.
holding on to, you're not known. And so there's always, it doesn't matter who you are, like there's something with that that's very unnerving. Like, because I feel like we all make mistakes. And so there's always that 1% that you're scared of telling, and for everyone it's different. But if you can push through that fear, which I had to do, and tell somebody, and then they just look at me in love and they just like almost laugh. They're like, that's what's holding you back?
Yeah.
And so I would just say for anyone that's going through that fear of like sharing the thing that you think is going to make you completely outcast from the world, it's the most life-giving thing on the other side of that.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
That's so good. All right. So not only do you lead worship, you also like to write worship songs.
Yes.
We talk a lot.
Didn't know I
about
could do that either.
Yeah.
Kind of got thrown into it.
But not only do you do that, but you don't just do it, but you're super good at it. Where do you pull inspiration from, when you write, and how much do you draw from things that you've gone through in your past that help kind of cultivate and create lyrics that you're writing on a page?
So I don't know how to tell you more directly. Sometimes, most of the time when I'm writing, I feel like God is like controlling my hand, because I didn't really ever write music before, like just getting involved with
Tennessee Pepsi was your first kind of
it's just
was your first
changing some
lyrical
lyrics. But obviously I go to the Bible the most, because it just seems so obvious to me. Like, why wouldn't we go there? But there's a lot of human experience that can go into songwriting. And right when I started, I definitely like went to that more. And music's always had like this huge effect on my emotions. And it had this like, when you hear a song, I feel like a lot of people experience this, not just me. When you hear a song, it'll take you back to the very moment. Like,
oh yeah.
And so like the effect that music had on me in my life was just like crazy. And I always noticed it. And so whenever I started writing, I started going to like these really dark places and like trying to write a song about it from this really dark place, which isn't bad. But most of the time I would write a song and I would like in the moment, it would be like, I'm getting this out. Like, this is good. And then at the final product, I was like, this is the saddest song I've ever written.
Yeah.
So it's hard to.
And also you're thinking about yourself and not really necessarily God,
right.
to an extent, you know?
Yeah.
You're more so focused on
yourself. I'm not really thinking about, like, I am thinking about God, and it's like a lot of times there's like this dialogue between me and him from this place that I was remembering that I was in. And I was thinking maybe if I write from this perspective, there's somebody in this place that's going to really resonate with this. But there needs to be more of a congregational approach to that and like a positive, like God perspective of that.
Yeah.
So like, because we're talking about worship music and primarily what we write for with LO is for the church, which I love. And so it's been a learning process. I'd say I'm still learning, but I love it. And God amazes me at what he drops on my heart.
Yeah.
Just by being in his word and like looking for what he wants me to write next. And honestly, like praying through that. I pray all the time. Like, God, give me these lyrics and make it so obvious that like this is not even from me. Yeah. That you're just using me. Yeah. To write this music.
So good. Well, you've written. I mean, what all songs did you write on the last LO album?
I wrote.
Well, you sing Steady Light.
I wrote on Steady Light.
Yeah.
And I wrote on. No, I did not write on. I did not write on Jesus Overall, and I did not write on Open.
Yeah.
And then I wrote on Steady Light, Promise to the End, and He's Not
Done. Yeah. Yes.
Which all
Steady Light's
three of those. No. Steady Light and He's Not Done just got written when we went to record Jesus Overall. Yeah. Which was the whole thing that started this. We were just going to record Jesus Overall, which Kaylee and some other people had written way before. And then we wrote like 5 songs when we were there. Yeah. And then wrote Promise to the End later. Me and Sadie wrote Promise to the End later. You were there for that.
I was there for that. I didn't get writing credit for it, but I was.
Honey did.
I was in the house. Yeah.
I have a voice memo to this
Honey's
day
on the credits for it
of Promise to the End and writing it, and Honey's just da-daing all through the living room.
Yeah. See that we did not use that in the final edit. Yeah. And I want to kind of end with this. So we've talked about you and Lydia. Like I said, y'all been married for. By the time this comes out, it'll be about 4 months. And, when y'all first started, when y'all first started liking each other, but you liked her a lot prior to her liking you. But I want to kind of talk about your pursuit and your, consistency and just your persistence to really see that through. Yeah. Because y'all were friends, which I think a lot of times, relationships, especially when you start dating someone or a spouse, you kind of start as friendships, and y'all were like best friends. And then you kind of wanted to move out of the friend zone to start dating her because you really liked her. And she did not necessarily reciprocate that early. How did you, because then I'm kind of skipping ahead of myself, because then when she started to like you, you kind of put on pause because you had camp, which is super mature. So how do you feel like, when you first started to like her and even fall in love with her, which I'll let you kind of maybe tap on that briefly for a second. How did you, when you maybe got shut down, I guess you could say, how did you keep pursuing that and kind of stay persistent with that, knowing that she was not feeling the same way early on?
Right. It's tough. Anybody that's in the friend zone right now, there's hope.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that are in the friend zone that are like, hey, I love my best friend.
Hey, it might be a good thing that you're in the friend zone. And like that was my case. So like when we started as friends, we met each other and we started hanging out, it was like really quickly, like we became close. So we were like best friends almost instantly, and we were both in this really rough place. And that was at the same time that I was in the dark, depressing place that I talked about earlier. And so it was just, we were just together every day. Like our friend groups were, because one of my best friends was dating one of her best friends. And so as I started to have feelings for her, I knew for myself that, like, 1, she's way out of my league. Yeah. 2, I would know if she's interested. It's not being reciprocated in the way that I want it to be. Like, we're friends, and she thinks I'm funny. I think she's funny. Like, we laugh at each other's jokes, but it's like, it's not. There's nothing obvious.
Nothing romantic about it.
Yeah. And, like, I'm also going through, like, the fact that the place that I'm in, the place that she's in, it's not. I know it's not what's best for me. And, in fact, like, my friends are telling, some of my friends are telling me, I don't know about this. So I'm like walking through that and kind of like, is it a bad idea? But I decided one day I couldn't take it anymore. Like, she had to know and we were just going to continue being friends. Or if she liked me, she would tell me and then we'd become more. So I just left work. I hope Kim Chiok isn't mad at me. But I left work. It was driving me insane. And I just drove to Ruston to her house, and I just walked in. It's like 3:00. She's in the middle of a class online, and I just walked in and told her how I felt, and I was like, "You just have to know this." And she says, I felt like that I'm in love with her. I don't think I said it that bluntly, but I may have.
I've heard you said it like that,
but
maybe not.
So I said it, and then she just didn't. She just laughed. Like, she was just like, okay, and she's just thrown completely off, doesn't know what to say. And I was like, you don't have to answer. We both just kind of laughed. And I was like, just let me know, think about it. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
And I left. Just went back to work. So that was like a really weird way to drop that on her. But over the next few days, like, it was like, no, but I don't know. And then it was just no.
Yeah.
And like, looking back, that was God protecting us. And that's why I say, like, maybe you're supposed to be in the friend zone, because that was the case for us at the time. Like, it was not. And I'm glad that I was protected from that, because I don't believe that us being thrown into a relationship more than friends right off the bat, it would have ended in sexual sin. We talk about it today.
Yeah.
Just because of the place we were in, we weren't at our strongest, like, where we needed to be. And so, like, God began preparing her as evident. It was like, I mean, she'll say it now. Like, it was like 3 or 4 weeks later that she was immediately like, I made a mistake. And thank goodness our college pastors at the time, like, I was talking to him and she's talking to her. And they were just like, you need to just go read some books. Like, when you think about it, I think that's literally what they said. When you think about him. So, yeah, she didn't come back around to talk to me about it until, like, that was in January. I told her in December. That was around January when she started thinking. And then she told me in, like, April. And she was about to work at camp, which I'm on staff at camp. So I was like, this isn't appropriate. So we'll just go through the summer together. We'll be together every day. It'll be like we are, but that's a really unhealthy place to just start a relationship anyway.
Sure. At a place where you're not allowed to have a relationship.
And, like, I'm running the worship program and you're going to be seen. Like, it's just going to be weird.
Yeah.
No one knows that we talked about this.
Yeah.
Like, see you in August.
There you go.
Thing.
Yeah, see you in August.
And then she said yes.
And here you are. Now y'all are married.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, Reese, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I love you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being so open and transparent. I really think that's going to help a lot of people. Wherever you're at, God can call you out of wherever. For us, we had huge moments where on paper, like we talked about it, we would have thought that's where God called us out of that. And he ultimately did. It just wasn't at the timing where maybe looking back, we thought it should have happened even, or maybe where we thought it would have happened, but it didn't happen then. And we're just here now, just trying to do our best and love God and serve people and just be good husbands. So hope you enjoy this episode. Send it to your friends, your family, reshare it, whatever, like, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review, only if it's going to be 5-star though. Please don't leave anything less than that. That would not be appreciated. But we love you guys and hope you all enjoyed it and hope you're really resonating with and enjoying just conversations with friends, because I think that's super beneficial, super impactful. And like I said, everything we talk about in the podcast today is stuff we talk about every day of our life. It's nothing like, nothing Reeves shared blindsided me or caught me off guard, because it's just stuff we talk about. We're just two good friends who don't hide anything from each other, and we confess stuff when we mess up, and we look to each other to build us up. So hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm kind of rambling now, so we'll see y'all next week.